Welcome to Habitalk, our first session for 2021, How to be a Successful Hornbill by my friend Mr. Yeap Chin Aik. So, I think most people, if you are a birder, if you are a conservationist, you would know Mr. Yeap Chin Aik. For those who never met him, who never heard of him, I first met Mr. Chin Aik in 2003. Yeah, 2003, counting hornbills in Temenggong Forest Reserve during a biodiversity expedition. It was organized by the Forestry Department and University Kebangsaan Malaysia. We actually both graduated from the same university, but different years, of course. Can see from the look, different years. He's my senior for a few years. Yeap holds a MSc in Conservation Biology, and he has worked for Malaysian Nature Society, MNS, for 21 years since year 2000. Currently, Mr. Yeap is the lead investigator and also co-founder of the MNS Hornbill Conservation Project, and also the senior conservation officer and project manager in the MNS Conservation Division. While working for MNS, Mr. Yeap has carried out various bird and non-bird conservation initiatives involving fauna survey and monitoring, species action plans, policy and advocacy, multi-level environmental agreements, capacity buildings, awareness programs, communication programs, community programs, all those programs for the past 20 years, 21 years. And also, Mr. Yeap has also worked with MNS International Partner, BirdLife International, in updating the status of globally threatened birds for Malaysia and important bird and biodiversity areas, or IBA, and also several regional bird-related projects. He also have published several articles on various birds and bird conservation issues from in Birding Asia, Malaysian Naturalist, Hornbill, and scientific journals. There's a lot in the list. I wouldn't have time to read all because it's too long. He also has co-authored few books, and he is also one of the steering committee member of the IUCN Hornbill Specialist Group and the habitat lead of the Helmeted Hornbill Working Group. Currently, Mr. Yeap is having his own headache, pursuing his PhD in the Faculty of Forestry, University Putra Malaysia, UPM in Serdang. So, how are you today, Mr. Yeap?
Thanks, Matt. Good to see you again. 2003 was really a fantastic year. Good to be with the Habitat Foundation for this talk. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. On that day in 2003, we counted 1,700 plus plain pouch hornbills.
That's correct.
Okay. So today also I'm going to pass the mic to you to proceed with your talk. Okay.
All right.
Please, Mr. Yeap.
Okay, Matt. Thanks, Matt, and the Habitat Foundation for the invitation to give this talk. Hi, everyone who's tuning in today. Great to have you with me. My name is Yeap, and I work for the Malaysian Nature Society. I'm also one of the co-founder of the MNS Hornbill Conservation Project that we established in 2004. Now, in today's talk, we'll take a peek into the hornbill's world. Okay? More specifically, how to be a successful hornbill. Now, this talk will be slightly a bit different, and I do need your cooperation, okay? So for all of you here who's listening to me today, I need you to put on a hornbill hat, okay? Imagine that you are one. But what is a successful hornbill? I think one thing for sure is that the successful hornbill is definitely not going to make tons of money, right? So let's say for the purpose of this talk, a successful hornbill is one that thrives in its forest habitat. The forest has all its needs, okay? The hornbill eats well, it can find a mate, it can raise a family, and it will live a long and productive life. But in order to be successful, a hornbill needs to know at least 5 things. Now, our story begins with an egg. Okay, so imagine that you are that hornbill egg. You know? So having been nurtured by mother hornbill in the nest, you will soon hatch and begin your life as a hornbill chick. Right? Now, once you've hatched, you'll slowly turn from a pink porcupine-like chick to a proper one with a full set of feathers. That will take time. As you grow bigger and stronger in the nest, you'll become more and more restless. You know, just like human kids, you know, as they grow up, they become more rambunctious and restless. Now you yearn to see the outside world and occasionally summon just enough courage to take a peek outside of your nest cavity. By now, your head, your small head, is already filled with so many questions. You know, not forgetting the bits of anxiety that you feel, and maybe a little bit of stress too. Why? Because soon you're gonna have to leave home. Now, when the time comes to leave the nest cavity, be bold. You might struggle a bit as you try to maneuver yourself out of that tight cavity, and it will take a couple of tries. But the moment you pop out of that cavity, quickly spread your wings and flap onto a safe landing, either on a branch or some soft vegetation. Now you will be dazed for a while. That's normal, okay? And that's okay. But find a safe perch and rest. Don't worry, because mom and dad will be nearby. You just need to listen to them because they will call to reassure you that they are not going to leave you alone. So your journey as a young hornbill at that point is about to start. Now, as a young hornbill, you need to know which tribe are you. Okay? Humans call it species. Now, knowing this helps you to understand your own strengths and behavior as well. It can even give you a slight advantage living in the forest. You need to recognize the physical features or tools that you have and how to use them. Now, as hornbills, the most prominent feature is your cast. Okay? All hornbills have casts. Okay? But the shapes will differ according to different tribes.
Okay, Mr. Yap.
Oi.
Hold on a bit.
No worries.
Okay. Earlier, you showed us the photo of two eggs. It seems like they are on a forest floor. So my question: does any of our hornbills in Malaysia lay eggs in a nest or on the floor or they just are specific to three cavities?
Okay. The eggs that you saw was actually eggs of the African hornbills. So I had to actually borrow the picture of a hornbill of a different tribe because I think I couldn't find picture of a hornbill egg, the Asian hornbill egg in the cavity. And I think it's not hard to understand why, because the African hornbill, the eggs are exposed. You know, the hornbills also nest in tree hollows, but they are totally open. Whereas for Asian hornbills, the eggs are actually inside a tree cavity. So I think it's quite difficult to actually take a natural picture of the Asian hornbill egg, you know, inside its cavity. Okay. But in any case, that's generally how a hornbill egg would probably look like.
Okay, thanks. Coming back to the cast, can you please explain the function of the cast? Are they just for beauty or what? Yeah, please.
All right, good. Now coming to cast, you know, so where I left off. So as a youngster, you will wonder what is your cast made of and how do I use it? Now all hornbill casts are made of layers of keratin, you know. These are the kind of material human fingernails and hair are made of. Most cars are hollow for hornbills, but for helmeted hornbills, a small part in front of the cars is solid. Okay, they're not totally solid. Now, the function of the cars is still being studied, but some ideas have emerged. They are used to amplify, make your calls in the forest. Some say it's used for jousting or headbutting, fighting for territory or food. Your cars also can perhaps indicate your age and sex. If you remember your uncle Reith Hornbill, right? No, his cars, the ridges on his cars will probably tell you how old your uncle is, right? So that is more or less some of the uses for the cars. Now, growing up as a hornbill chick, you probably realize that mom and dad are actually different, even though both wear the same black and white outfits, right? So the hornbill tribes, our tribe, are mostly black, white, with some gray or brown. However, our facial area and cars will have a bit more color. But mom and dad have some subtle differences that tell them apart, right? If you look carefully, the rhinoceros hornbill dad has a black line on his cars and a red iris. But mom does not have a black line on her cars and has white iris. Now, caring for yourself and hygiene are important skills that hornbills need to learn. Okay? Feathers are your most important asset. So sunning is absolutely crucial, especially after raining days and damp, misty mornings. You do not want to be a wet sponge, which could damage your feathers in the long term, and this will affect your flight capabilities. So when the sun is up, stretch your wings and sunbathe until you are dry. Now, another way to keep feathers clean is to take a dust bath or to do anting. By dust bathing, you will remove parasites that can damage your feathers. And sometimes you can even use ants to indirectly help you. So this is what is called anting. So don't forget to do a dust bath from time to time as well. Another feather care tip is to tap into your oil or preen gland located just above the base of your tail. Humans call them uropygial gland. Now, this gland will produce orangey, reddish fluids, which contains biochemicals that help chemical and waterproof your feathers. Now, it also gives your feathers an extra shine as well. So use your bill to gently squeeze the gland to release the oil, and with your bill again, preen your feathers with this oil. Now that you're out in the world, you'll need to learn about your place, your forest home. This is where you will spend the rest of your life. So understanding where and how to locate resources is important. Embrace your spirit of exploration. Roam every inch of your forest territory. Now, we are rather fortunate to live in the Malaysian rainforest because all 10 of our species or tribes can be found here. Now, contrary to many people's belief, only 8 hornbill species are found in Sabah and Sarawak, whereas Peninsular Malaysia has all 10. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, living in Belum Temenggong, 10 hornbill species occupy this forest. Now, Belum Temenggong is big enough for all of us, but you still need to share this living space with other hornbills. Now, luckily for you and many other hornbill youngsters, you'll still be with mom and dad for a while, at least for a year. Now, through us and by following us, you will learn how to be a resourceful hornbill. Like your plain pouch hornbill cousins, the youngsters will follow their parents after they fledge from Thailand to Belum Temenggong, where they will stay and follow the flocks for 4 to 5 months, traversing the landscape, learning where to find ripe fruits and to roost at night.
Okay, Chin Aik, I have a question.
Yes.
Just now you were mentioning that they are found in the Belum Temenggong Forest Complex, right?
Yes.
And we have 10 species there in Belum Temenggong. What about
Yeah.
other habitat types? Are they found in other habitat types other than the Dietary forest of the Belum Temenggong area?
Absolutely. You can find hornbills in different habitat types as well, but generally they're all forests. Okay. For example, the Oriental pied hornbill, which is the most common here, you can find them in also mangrove forests. If you go to the Matang mangroves along the coast of Perak, sometimes you can encounter them. You also can encounter them in villages that have secondary growth of fruit trees and so forth, right? And other hornbills might even prefer peat swamp forests, which is a bit different from the tropical rainforest in Belum Temenggong. So some of the hornbills have different preferences and they can be found in different forest types in Malaysia. So hopefully that gives you an idea where they can found. So right now, for a hornbill youngster, sometimes you can still beg your parents for food, right? But bear in mind, you're going to frustrate your parents who's trying to educate you. So you better work hard than suffer later, okay? So just to show a brief video of the plain pouch hornbills that visit Belum Temenggong every year. The numbers will differ every year, but generally, so we have counted throughout the years regularly. A few hundreds will occur, and as Ahmad and I have the privilege to see, in 2003 we saw more than 1,000 over plain pouch hornbills in Temenggong. So this is Belum Temenggong is one of the 2 places probably in the world that you can see plain pouch hornbills congregate in such numbers. Right. Now, keeping yourself and eventually your family alive will be your daily affair, as a hornbill. Our rainforest is like a supermarket for animals, but finding the right type of food can be a challenge. Sadly, you cannot find all this in a single place. Okay? Most of the fruits are scattered in the forest, and some will fruit annually, but some will not have a fixed fruiting timetable. So bearing this in mind, you need to recognize what kind of fruit that you like best, where to find it, and remember when it fruits. Okay? Now, for fruits, there are basically 2 kinds of fruits that hornbill eat. They are called dehiscent or indehiscent fruits. They're just fancy names that mean for dehiscent fruits, they split open when they ripe, and indehiscent, they don't split open. Now, these fruits are rich in nutrients that you need, like carbohydrates, fats, calcium, protein. So you must learn to discern the fruit colors as well. Now, look out for fruits that are black, red, yellow, orange, deep purple, that your beak can reach and pluck. Now, in our forest, our kind eat many different types of fruits. At least 100 different types and counting have been recorded by humans who observe us. In Malaysia, they found that hornbills eat regularly from at least 6 different plant families. So in Belum Temenggong, do seek out these fruits in our forest and remember where they are. There is this wonderful fruit in our forest that you should always look out for and remember where they are and where to find them. In Belum Temenggong, you can find many different types of figs, big and small, different shapes and sizes. The orang asli that live in the landscape with us have different names for them. They are called benim, berol, sahse, pasir, many different names. Now, differences aside, all of them are nutritious. So you have to decide which you like best. Now, what we eat is also targeted by other animals in the forest as well. You have gibbons, green pigeons, squirrels, and other fruit-loving animals who are eyeing the same fig tree as you. So they will compete with you for this fruit, trying to eat as many as possible and stay on the tree as long as possible. Now for figs, don't be surprised if you see other hornbill tribes visiting the same fig as you are eyeing. If you're born as a large hornbill, like rhinoceros hornbill, you don't have to worry too much about other hornbills. Your size is already your advantage. Other smaller hornbills will generally wait for you to finish. But if you have other rhinoceros or great or helmeted hornbills on the same fig tree, try to avoid feeding too close to each other. So to have an upper hand in feeding, approach the fruiting fig tree as soon as the sun rises. It may still be a bit dark, but this is the best time. Okay? Remember that the early bird gets the worm, or in this time, you get the fig. More visitors will arrive at the tree as the morning moves on. You can visit the tree again in the evening, just before dusk to feed if you prefer. Now, another tip here is that do not roost too far away from this fruiting fig tree. Then you don't have to fly too far the next morning to get here and to get there early. Now, you should also know that among some of our hornbill tribes, the helmeted hornbill likes figs the most. So much so that they are often considered as fig specialists. So don't be surprised to find a helmeted hornbill pair or group at the fig tree earlier than yourself. Now, as much as you love figs, don't forget to look out for other indehiscent fruits. These fruits usually will have a fixed fruiting period. In Belum Temenggong, the peak fruiting period usually occurs from April, May, and will last up to July. Keep an eye out also for palms like Bias and Melajang that grow in Belum Temenggong. They may come in handy as well when you raise your chick. So fruits may form a large part of our diet, but you also need to sharpen your skill to catch animals like scorpions, centipedes, beetles, stick insects, snakes, katydids, and so on. Your smaller cousins like the oriental pine and white crown hornbills, they are experts in catching these animals. So this skill is also important when you start a family one day, because your chick will need animal protein to help them grow. Now, as hornbills, there is a rhythm of life that we must follow. There is a season to start a family and a season to roam. In Belum Temenggong, that season from January to July is the time for you to raise a family. Now, some might start a bit later, but this will continue to drag on, and especially for large hornbills. Now, after a breeding season, you can take your family and roam the landscape, to teach the young ones the ways of the hornbills and prepare them for their own rhythm in life. To find a mate, however, and even to maintain your existing couple relationship is not an easy task. You will need to undergo a test every year. Don't take it lightly. You will need to prove that you're worthy of your mate's trust and confidence.
So, Mr. Yap, sorry.
Oi, yes.
So the way that you're telling us the story now, it seems like they are pet for life. Are they all monogamous? All the 10 species of hornbills in Malaysia?
Hornbills are monogamous, absolutely. So once they find a girlfriend that will sort of graduate to become your wife, and that wife will be your spouse until one of you kicks the bucket. So if let's say your wife, your female mate dies, then it is likely for the mate to the male one to find a new mate lah. But until that happens, they are monogamous. So
it has never been recorded of one male having extra girlfriend. None, never.
To my knowledge, no. But who knows, right? But generally, our knowledge of hornbills is that they are monogamous, and that is a great thing. You know, they can replace Mandarin ducks as the symbol of monogamy here. Okay, right. So, coming back to feeding your mate. Now, if you give her the fruits and she accepts it, then the signs are promising. Now, you should keep doing this until you see the signs to move to the next stage. Now, here's a tip from an experienced hornbill, an old hornbill. Find out what she likes and offer her that fruit. Don't just simply offer any fruits that you can find. I was thinking of, like a human boyfriend buying just simply any chocolates for your girlfriend. So obviously the boyfriend needs to put in a bit effort to find out what kind of chocolates that the girlfriend likes. So back to being a hornbill. So once the courtship is over, you and your mate will need to search for cavities to nest. Now, interestingly, most humans assume that we can build nests just like any other birds. Now, hornbills cannot make their own nests. They don't have the right body parts or tools or skills to make one. So what do? We depend on other birds like woodpeckers. Here we have a picture of a great slaty woodpecker, barbirds, and even sun bears to help create the tree cavities that we need. So tree cavities can form on the main tree trunk, on tree branches, or even knobs. Now, hornbills can use any of these three parts, although the main trunk seems to be the most common. The helmeted, however, is the pickiest of us all. They only use tree knobs to nest. Now, this piece of tree part is usually hard to find. Now, to pick a suitable nest cavity and nest tree, look out for trees that are at least 230 centimeters in circumference. If we are a large hornbill like rhinoceros, we need at least 300 centimeters. Okay, anything bigger than this would be fantastic. So check out trees like merbau, tualang, meranti. All these are generally hardwoods, but there are also softwoods that we can use, and other common trees in our Belum Temenggor forest for cavities. Now, searching for suitable cavity takes time, and there are many factors to consider. You and your partner will have to roam the forest and investigate many cavities before deciding on one. Location, location, location. This is the buzzword that you need to remember. But don't forget to check the cavity floor, the ceiling, the size of the cavity as well. Okay? For humans, it's almost like buying a new home or renting one. So many hornbills couples during this time will also be doing the same thing as you. So when you find a suitable cavity, move in quickly. Finders keepers. When your mate is in, she will start to seal the cavity using her own feces and regurgitated food pulp. As a responsible male partner, do try to help her out the best you can. Now, once she's inside, she will be totally dependent upon you for months to come. From the egg laying till your chick fletch, food delivery, and defending the cavity will be your full-time job. So the nesting season will be the busiest period of your time. As soon as your chick hatches and starts eating, you will need to find food and deliver it back to the nest many times during the day. It's beginning to sound like you're a Grab driver, Grab food driver or food panda driver. Now, if the fruit is small, you can keep many in your cooler pouch and make less trips to the fruit tree back to your nest daily. But if the fruit is big, then you can only store a few, so more trips will be needed. Don't be discouraged if your mate rejects your food offering once in a while, okay? Because being cooped up with a bunch of growing chicks will test your mate's patience many, many times over. When it is time to emerge, your mate will break the wall seal and emerge first. Now you will need to encourage your chick to follow as well. Now to do this, try not feeding it for a day. The hunger might hasten the chick to emerge. For larger hornbills like the rhinoceros, the chick will remain inside the cavity for probably a month before it is ready to fledge. Now, come that time, use the same trick. Now, it is always a joyous occasion when your chick finally fledges and can join you both. However, when emerging from the cavity, accidents can happen, as cavities can be quite high on a tree. If the chick don't land properly when they pop out, they can be injured, and usually that will often result in death. So life can actually be very fragile for a hornbill. Also, don't despair if you and your mate return to the same tree the following year and find that your nest tree has been damaged and become unusable. This is nature's way, and there's really nothing much we can do as hornbills except to find a new cavity. Now, being hornbills, we have an important responsibility to perform ecologically. We need to nurture our forest home as much as the forest home has nurtured and sustained us. So we eat a lot of fruits of many, many kinds. So we are suited to be farmers and foresters. We can help replant the seeds away from its mother tree. In some cases, we might even bring a new forest into a degraded area. So remember to perform your duty diligently in different parts of the forest. Now, this is the way of the hornbill. Now, being hornbills today is very challenging. Our Belum Temenggong home is still a very large forest landscape, but other hornbills are not as fortunate as us, right? Forest homes for hornbills are shrinking across Southeast Asia. Those that remain are sometimes degraded or too small to sustain many of us.
Okay,
As though that, yes, Matt.
Sorry, I want to stop you a bit there.
Yes.
All these threats that are threats towards threatening the hornbills, are they the same threats all across Southeast Asia, or specific countries, specific sites has different threats being faced by the hornbills?
For Asian hornbills in Southeast Asia, I think all Asian countries that has got forests will also face the same issue of forest loss, forest degradation, and even fragmentation. The only thing that is probably different is the scale. In some countries, the forest loss rate could be higher than compared to another country. One of the emerging threats that we are currently trying to address is the poaching of helmeted hornbill. These majestic hornbills are killed for their cast and sold in the East Asian market as luxury items. And these hornbills, they are slow breeders. Every time they produce a chick, it's only one a year, and they don't breed every single year. So you imagine if one forest poacher can possibly clean out the entire population of helmeted hornbill in that particular site. And that is exactly what has happened to some of the sites in Indonesia. So that problem was first detected in Indonesia, and we hope that through the actions of our wildlife agencies in Malaysia, that problem will not get a hold in our forest lah. Another threat that is also partly related to poaching is poaching hornbills to become pets. For some reason, some people like to keep hornbills as pets. So what normally happens is that they will be poached at their nest tree while they are chicks, and take it out from the nest and then sold it to the prospective buyer. So these are the threats that hornbills face in Southeast Asia lah. So there's much work to do to safeguard hornbills and the forests that they need to survive lah. So back to the story. So through the hornbill's eyes, fortunately, they have human allies. Now, there are conservation NGOs, local communities, indigenous communities in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, India that are making efforts to protect what is left of us and our forest home. They all have different names: hornbill guardians, hornbill nest protectors, forest guardians, but their mission is the same, right? Is to protect hornbills and the forest home. So take comfort, my dear young hornbill. We might just make it out of these problems. Now, this is the final no for hornbill. So you see, to be a successful hornbill in the forest is actually very tough. But once you've learned the basics from your parents, the rest is entirely up to you. Your experience will also help shape you. From one hornbill generation to another, please remember these 5 no's and remember the ways of the hornbill. So that sort of captures the end of my story as through the eyes of the hornbill. So putting back again my human cap. So this is the question that I would pose to you who are listening today. What can you do to help hornbills after learning about them? Now, one of the simplest things to do is to help communicate, right? Communicate the right facts about hornbills. Okay, we need to create the right awareness. Now, many people still confuse a toucan for a hornbill. This goes for Malaysians also as well, right? So there are misconceptions about hornbills. Now, as you can see here, toucans are definitely not hornbills. Another simple way is to use money, right? Now in Malaysia, we have the rhinoceros hornbill on our 5 ringgit note, okay? So all of us can play the role of an hornbill ambassador for Malaysia. So I'm going to paraphrase AirAsia right now, okay? Now everyone can be hornbill ambassadors. No. So Malaysians, my fellow Malaysians, do take note. We can do this for our country. And also, by the way, the rhinoceros hornbill is not Malaysia's national bird. Okay, we do not have a national bird, but the rhinoceros hornbill is the official state bird of Sarawak. It is also featured on their coat of arms. Now, if you like this talk, I would urge you to perhaps think about supporting MNS and our hornbill conservation work. Be a member of MNS at the very least. Okay? And if you're keen to know more about our society, you can check out our website, and also our Facebook page. Now, this decade from 2021 till 2030 is a very important decade for all of us. The United Nations have declared it as the decade of ecosystem restoration. Now, in this 10-year window, we have the opportunity to rehabilitate or restore our forests where it's needed. Now, with that in mind, and with the knowledge of hornbills that we have to date, MNS is piloting a small-scale community nursery focusing on hornbill food plants for this year. So we hope to give hornbills and humans an extra hand. Now, for this purpose, I will take this opportunity to thank the Habitat Foundation for supporting this endeavor. So, folks, thank you so much for listening to me today. And I hope that through this talk, your appreciation and wonder for hornbills have grown a notch, and perhaps maybe even turn you into a hornbill fan. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for a very enlightening session, Mr. Yap. I'm sure people out there really appreciate the knowledge that you have shared, the 5 important points of how to be a successful hornbill. Okay, for the viewers out there, if you have any questions, please post your questions in the comment section of the platform that you're using, either on Facebook, the Habitat Foundation's Facebook, or on the Habitat Foundation's YouTube channel. Yeah, so please keep your questions simple and precise, and then our friend here will try his best. But he's the expert; he can answer everything.
But if studying hornbills tell me after so many years, right, being an expert is just impossible. Every time you learn something new about hornbills, they'll come back and tell you you need to learn more. So I don't think any one of us will eventually become an expert. Call it a lifelong learning endeavor. So okay, let's try to see any questions there.
Okay, so there's the first question from Wong Pui Mei, from Bandar Selangor. Thanks Pui Mei for coming. This one old friend as well. So does the white crown hornbill have a cast too? It just looked like a feathery mohawk from the photo.
The short answer is yes. If it doesn't have a horn, then probably it will not be called a hornbill. Now, the reason why you probably cannot see the horn, right, because it is just a tiny one, and it is covered by their hair, the white mohawk, the feathery mohawk that you mentioned. But yes, they do have casts. But then again, white crown hornbills look like rock stars anyway, from the 80s, with a cast.
I have seen a white crown hornbill eating a snake when I was in Ulu Muda. Some years ago. So do they regularly come, because it was on the forest floor? That's where.
Okay.
So do hornbills regularly come down to forest floor?
I think regular is a bit hard to. Yeah, probably not regular, but then again, we don't really know. The smaller hornbills, I think like the oriental pied, white crown, bushy crested, I think have been seen, observed, camera trapped on the ground. What they do there sometimes is a mystery, but sometimes we can see they were fiddling around, maybe trying to catch something that we could not see. The bigger hornbills, as far as I personally, I've not seen them on the ground. So I think they just exploit a very different niche, I think, in the forest. The smaller ones, are brave enough perhaps to come down to the ground, whereas the bigger ones, maybe they are a bit less secure, coming to the ground unless they have to. So that's what I have more or less seen from pictures, photos, and also from own experience in Belum Temenggong.
Okay, let's see the next question. What next question do we have? Okay, from Gillian McAdam. Do we know why there are no hornbills in Penang? Yeah, I've been wondering why are there any hornbills in Penang?
The million dollar question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not very sure as well. But just like you, Gillian, I also wonder the same thing. And the reason why is that I myself am a Penangite also as well. Okay. But I didn't grow up on the island. I grew up on mainland Penang. So if I were to imagine myself in centuries ago, before we even had Butterworth, I'm quite sure that they are covered with forest all the way to the coast. So I would hazard a guess that one would also find at least the oriental pipe on mainland Penang. But I think now also, I think there are some sporadic reports or observations of oriental pipe in Butterworth also as well. Whether that's an escapee or it is a natural occurring bird from some forest fragments, I guess we don't know. So, like you, I guess we are still on a lifelong mission of trying to unearth why or if Penang ever had hornbills. So I'm sorry, Gillian. I'm also trying to find out as well whether we have hornbills on Penang Island. But on mainland Penang, I would think there would have been hornbills there before it became more agriculture and industrialized.
I have seen oriental pipe near Jijawi before.
There you go. Yeah.
But yep. I really hope we have hornbills on the island. Okay, let's go for the next question. From Nature Classroom.
Nature Classroom.
Is that all 10 hornbills in Malaysia are monogamous? This is actually some related to the question that I've asked you earlier. So are they all monogamous, all 10?
Yes, that's the short answer. Yes. They're all monogamous, but the bushy crested hornbill offers a slightly different, interesting twist. The bushy crested hornbill, when they breed cooperatively. Now, what that means is that you still have, they're like wolves. Okay, to simply put an analogy, they're like wolves. So you have the alpha male, you have the alpha female. Now, the alpha male and alpha female are the only ones that is allowed to breed, to raise the family. So you still have other members of the bushy crested in that group also as well. Now, all these other fellas, their responsibility is to help raise the family of the alpha male and alpha female. Okay, so perhaps for bushy crested hornbills, that is why they can have more chicks than one or two, for a pair, because they have extra help. I think if you want to put an analogy again, they are like servants, These are like chicks from previous years of the alpha male and female. So they have servants to help the alpha male and female to raise the chick. And in Belum Temenggong, from our experience, we have come across in one nest, they had three chicks in one cavity with mom inside. So you imagine if you're in that cavity as a mom with three rambunctious, growing teenagers, it's gonna be quite an interesting household inside. I would say it will drive mom mad. But unfortunately, this story has got a happy and sad ending. The happy ending is that the chicks fledged. All the chicks fledged. The mom came out, the chicks came out, but one chick died. So that chick was the one that I featured in the presentation that you saw. We don't know what's the cause of it, but given the height of the tree cavity and where it was found, it could also be, as I shared, that from that height they didn't flap well enough to have a soft landing, and just injured itself critically lah. So there's a sad and happy ending to that.
Okay, next question we have from Morgana Sundram. Helmeted hornbills found at Crow Game Reserve. Should be, I guess. I've never seen them.
I can't remember offhand. I've read the literature, but Crow Game Reserve, that's the old name, or Crow Wildlife Reserve, that's the new name, that is managed by Perhilitan, is actually part of a bigger forest landscape. Okay, call it the Greater Crow Forest Landscape, which is managed by Forestry Department. So I would hazard a guess again, without referring back to the reference that I've read in the past. The combination of these two forests would probably sustain helmeted hornbill as well. Yeah, but I think Tuan Morgana, if you have seen, I think that would be great. I've not seen it myself in Crow, although I believe Crow is a wonderful place for hornbills. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, based on the paper that MNS produced recently on important hornbill landscapes, the Greater Crow Forest Complex, as we called it, which includes Crow Wildlife Reserve, is one of the 14 important hornbill landscapes for Peninsular Malaysia. So that shows that this site is critical for the long-term survival of hornbills in Peninsular Malaysia.
Okay, thanks. The next question from Sin Wei Xia. Has there been DNA paternity test done on hornbill adults and young?
If I try to recall some of the work that my colleagues is doing regionally in different countries, I think probably yes. Again, I can't recall exactly, but there have been DNA genetic studies of hornbills in this region. But in Malaysia, I think not yet. Retrieving actually genetic materials of wild hornbills are quite a challenge in this case. Like for us in MNS, we're not a 100% research institution, so we don't really go into genetics and DNA studies But we do welcome collaboration where it's possible, and maybe that will help extend the understanding of hornbills in Belum Temenggong and probably elsewhere a little bit more. But I think even before we go into doing tests, I think, as I said earlier, getting the genetic material is hard. Why? Because you have to find where they nest. And where they nest, finding where they nest is no easy feat, because they are not going to tell you, say, hi guys, this is my nest tree. So if you look at the slide that I showed, of Belum Temenggong, the forest, it looks small, but trust me, walking in the forest for 1 kilometer trying to find hornbill nests, it's not easy. But I think there are many avenues to explore for hornbill studies in Malaysia. And it's not just in Belum Temenggong, you can also find hornbills in other different places. So I think whoever's interested in studying hornbills, you can also look at other important hornbill landscapes in Peninsular Malaysia, or when we have mapped out in Sabah and Sarawak also as well. That will provide more avenues to perhaps make more impact lah for hornbill studies elsewhere, apart from Belum Temenggong.
Okay, next question from Yen Yi. Is there any vocal development studies on hornbills? Okay, I can bring first, no problem.
Vocal development studies. Can't say I know exactly what you mean, but I think this is more related to their biology side already, if I'm not mistaken. Short answer is no. Despite MNS doing work for 16 years under the MNS Hornbill Conservation Project, to honestly say that we are only scratching the surface. Of course, right now we know a bit more than when we first started, but it has taken us that long to even arrive to where we are today. So vocal development studies, DNA studies, genetic studies, all are interesting branches to gain better understanding of hornbills, but sadly at this point in time, no, we don't. But I think the good thing is that perhaps you can consider it as an idea after you've graduated from your PhD.
Oh. Another question from, one question from Ravinder Kaur. This is also a familiar name here. How many white crown hornbills have you come across, and what kind of cavity entrance shapes do they prefer?
If I remember offhand, as of today, only two. At most, three. Most of the shape is still the usual slit entrance on the main trunk. Yeah, that's the only shape that we've seen to date.
Okay, let's see what's the next question. From Shang Ming. What do you think about creating artificial nesting site for hornbills?
I think that is a necessary tool in the conservation toolbox for hornbills as well. But the more important question is, do we need it, right? Do we need it at so-and-so site? Creating artificial nests, just like doing the work that we do in situ work, requires a lot of money, requires a lot of investment and resources. So you have to be certain about the reason for putting an artificial nest site in nest boxes for hornbills. I probably think you are aware of a lot of work that's been done in Kinabatangan, and that region warrants the need for artificial nests because there isn't any large trees left. Even if you have large tree, the tree may not necessarily have the cavity that the hornbill needs. So artificial nest boxes are absolutely crucial in that region if you want to keep the hornbill population, maintain the hornbill population, or even help expand the hornbill population in Kinabatangan. But if you just use it as a quick fix, without the proper motivation and reason, that then becomes an expensive exercise lah. Right? In the first priority, always the first priority is to save the forest, is to keep the forest. So that is what we're doing in Belum Temenggong. We do not explore the option of artificial nest boxes yet, and I hope that we never will, because we need to keep forests as intact as possible, those that we have right now. And in Peninsular Malaysia, a lot of wildlife's future is riding on what we all understand as the central forest spine. Now, if you're not aware of what Central Forest Pine is, CFS. This is a master plan for ecological linkages in Peninsular Malaysia. So Google the term and try to read up on the Central Forest Pine. Wow, Mr. Sarawanan, this is a very heavy question that requires probably several sessions of Dietary. Good day to you. The population trend of hornbills in Peninsular Malaysia, as far as we know, has not been really quantified, simply because there wasn't anybody investing in hornbill work, for many years except MNS. But this is an important question. You're right. But for certain species, we might have an idea of that population trend. For example, we monitor plain pouch hornbills for consistently through the Hornbill Volunteer program for, I think, almost a decade now, with some gaps in between. So the information that we get for plain pouch hornbills that we count in Belum Temenggo, we have an idea of how big is the population, the migratory population, if you want to call it. But as for other species, I think that is the trend that we are going towards. And sadly, again, this may not necessarily be for all hornbills, but because Helmeted Hornbill right now is in a critical condition, I think there's a lot of work in this region, including Malaysia, to sort of get a population number idea, at least for Helmeted Hornbill. So there are plans. There are plans in terms of understanding the population trend, population numbers better, but I cannot say whether it's successful or not. This is at this moment being implemented. So we shall see after maybe a year, not a year, 2 years, 3 years, or within a 5-year period, what numbers we can come up after the work has been done on the ground. And I think if you are keen to read more about action plans that is about hornbills, there is the Helmeted Hornbill Regional Action Plan for Helmeted Hornbills that is online. So I would encourage you to check that out, because that will be the guiding document for many of us who works on hornbills, not just Helmeted Hornbill, to try to realize the actions that has been proposed and suggested inside.
Okay, last question. What's your prognosis for the future of hornbills in Peninsular Malaysia?
Mr. Page, I wish I had a crystal ball, to gaze into the future and tell you that answer. But then again, the future is what we made of it, isn't it? So I, for one, working in MNS, would like to be hopeful that we can still have a future for hornbills in Peninsular Malaysia. We know the situation is challenging and in some cases dire for forests in Peninsular Malaysia, but we should not throw in the towel. So I would like to envision a future for hornbills in Peninsular Malaysia and work towards that future. Because if we don't, then we might as well just give up and just easily answer the question at this point in time. Probably we don't have a future for hornbills. So let's not take that that path, right? When I first started this work in MNS, the awareness, the understanding of hornbills is maybe this little or zero. But the good thing about hindsight is that I've seen more appreciation for hornbills, more awareness on hornbills. Even politicians and decision makers, policy makers can now remember, oh, there are 10 hornbill species of hornbills in Belum Temenggo. That took 10 years, by the way, for that to remain inside the head. So I think hornbills will have a future, not just in Peninsular Malaysia, but in Malaysia, if we all help it to be positive. So I'm doing my part. Society is doing my part. Society is doing its part. I would leave it to everybody to also do some part to help push for that brighter future.
Okay, thank you for all the answers. I'm sorry, everybody, we don't have enough time to answer all your questions. However, Mr. Yeap will be sharing a list of further reading materials if you want to know more about hornbills. So again, thanks to you, thanks to everybody, thanks to our viewers on Facebook, thanks to all the viewers on YouTube, and thanks again, banyak-banyak terima kasih to Mr. Yeap Chin Aik for spending your time being with us 1 hour 7 minutes so far, 1 hour 7 minutes, sharing your experience for the past 21 years, and it'll be more for another, I don't know, the next, and it'll continue for another 20 years, 30 years.
I hope so.
boleh. Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so for those who miss the outdoors, okay, I heard, I'm not sure whether it's true that MCO is going to be extended again.
Yes.
It's true. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So that's the sad side of things. But for those who miss the outdoors, who want to experience outdoors, but by being indoors but can still enjoy the outdoors, join us on 7th of February. We have the Habitat Larut Malam. It's an online session, virtual session. You need to pay 10 ringgit. That 10 ringgit will go into our reforestation programs, the Habitat Foundation reforestation programs. Okay, Habitat Larut Malam is on the 7th February from 8 to 9 p.m. Yeah, from 8 to 9 p.m. on Zoom. Okay, so for further information, please go to our website, www.thehabitat.my, www.thehabitat.my for further information. Okay, so thanks everybody. Thanks again. Have a good day. Have a good rest. I wish everyone have a great day away from COVID, and hopefully the COVID-19 condition in Malaysia will get better soon. So let's all do our part, play our role in taking care of our health and also our environment. Thanks again. Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Habitat. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.